Welcome back to another episode of To Be Determined, a Formula One podcast. I'm PJ with my co-host Steve, where we'll be going over the Singapore Grand Prix and previewing the Japanese Grand Prix in Suzuka. What's going on, Steve?
Not much. Just getting back into the swing of things. Had a great weekend. Watched the race. Watched half the race and then went to go play pickleball. So I just watched the end of the race this afternoon and checked out some of the highlights and everything. And the big news for me of the day is I bought a new pickleball paddle. Look at that. Selkirk.
Oh, it's sick.
I actually reached out to
Top
Selkirk.
of the line pickleball paddle.
It is. Look at that. I reached out to this company.
Yeah.
On the pickleball TikTok and Instagram, and asked them if they would be a sponsor, because one of the guys that we play with said he tried it and might happen.
Did they say yeah?
They didn't respond to mine, but they're talking to him because he asked them like a couple of weeks ago.
Well, he did play basketball at Butler.
I know.
So
yeah, he did. He said he used that account, like his regular account with all those and like people from that, and then pickleball accounts that actually has a lot of views and stuff. So he used that too.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's good.
But they said no to me, so I had to buy my paddle.
Maybe he'll let you have a sponsored paddle once he gets the sponsorship.
Maybe. All right, what'd you do this week?
We had a date night Friday. Went out to dinner here in Denver. Saturday helped a buddy move. Watched the Purdue football game. Sunday woke up early. The race started at 7 a.m. for me, so woke up earlier than normal on a weekend. Watched the beginning of the race. Didn't finish it. Fell back asleep in the middle of the race. It's typically how I watch the race. I watch the beginning, kind of fall back asleep, watch the end of the race. Watched the Steelers and went to a haunted house. Went to a haunted corn maze, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, were you saying the haunted house was actually kind of scary?
It was good. I mean, I'm not afraid to get scared. I yelled the whole time, and it's a lot of fun. So, I mean, I'm not too worried about it. So, help me out. Fill me in with how the race went this weekend. Like I said, I saw the beginning. I don't have too many notes from the race. I was more so tuned into the NASCAR race at Talladega. So, I didn't watch too many recaps from the F1 race. What was it like?
Well, how far? Tell me what you know. Tell me like how far you got to.
You're gonna have to cut that. I don't even know.
You don't know anything?
No.
I'm not cutting that. It's real life. It's real life. You just lied. You said you watched it and went back to bed.
I turned it on and then I fell back asleep.
Right away.
Yeah, I had it on my phone and I was looking at my phone and then the next thing I know I was asleep.
See, I'm not cutting that. That's the best part. All right. Let me get my notes. So just a second.
All right. What are your race notes?
Trying to find them.
Oh my god. I thought we were going to be prepared.
We are prepared. I had them somewhere, but I can't find them.
Anywho.
All right, let me...
I
got it.
Right.
What? Yeah, go. Okay. Talk about Talladega.
What?
Talk about Talladega while I get this up real quick.
Is that your dog?
Can you hear him?
Is he having a dream?
Yeah. Hey, wait.
Well, if that isn't the most radio thing ever.
You can't hear him. He's not doing it now, obviously, of course. All right. I'm trying this record. Here. Oh, shit.
Go. And go.
Can you hear me?
And go. Go.
I'll give you a recap off the top of my head.
Okay.
I'm going to try to do it in 30 seconds.
All right.
Time me.
Ready?
Recap in 30. Time me.
Right.
This week's race in Singapore was a wild one. It started off with an hour delay because of the rain. Everyone started on intermediate tires. Checo got the lead, kept the lead, and tried to fend off a charging Charles Leclerc in the second half of the race. Checo was leading under safety car. Safety car goes too fast. Checo goes too slow, gets a 5-second penalty, and still wins the race. Damn, that's pretty good.
That was good.
All right, now I'll go.
I set the timer for 35 seconds, so you got an extra 5 seconds.
Nice. That's actually pretty good.
That was good.
All right, so I'll go through a little more detail.
So yeah, tell me a little bit more about it.
So it did start like 60 or 90 minutes late, something like that, because it was raining too much, and then so it was, I think, the opposite of what happened in qualifying, where they had, I think it was dry and it was turning wet, or maybe it's the same, because it was wet and then it was turning dry. So everyone had to try to figure out when to switch to slick tires and go with hards or softs, or mediums or softs.
Is that what we're looking at right now?
On the timing screen.
Yeah.
So like I think this is only a couple laps in.
Charles is pushing hard on Checo.
Yeah, this is 23 laps in, and they're still on intermediates. Oh, all right. So this is where things. Latifi, I think he crashed, not surprisingly. Zhou had something with his car. Oil started leaking out when he was trying to turn. Alonso, right now, I think is basically, I think he broke down too. So there's a safety car coming up, I think. But anyway, so George was the first one to try the mediums, and that's where he's at right now. He's on lap 1. And it's terrible for him. He can't get it at all. He's up, I think, plus 15 seconds on that last interval, you see.
Yeah.
But so if he would have gotten it right, if it would have worked out, he would have been in a really great spot to leapfrog everyone if those actually would have worked out.
Yeah, it's a good gamble to take.
Yeah, and he started 20th, so he had nothing to lose.
Right, you can take that gamble.
Yeah. So what happens later? So you get safety car, someone else retires, Albon, and then you get an ad.
Next time we'll log into my YouTube. I pay for YouTube Premium because I'm not a peasant.
All right, we'll do that. All right, so there's a safety car coming up. So basically, a couple safety cars happen. Before that, I forget if it's a really cool moment in the race, which we probably, and this is for a clip, we probably saw something that we will never see again in the history of Formula One with 3 world champion drivers, 3 of the current world champion drivers. Can you guess that? Can you guess what that is?
What are you talking about?
So,
Say the question again.
no, I'm not gonna say it again.
We saw something that we would never see between the world champion drivers. Were they all battling each other?
So, yeah, we saw something we'll probably never see again.
Vettel, Verstappen, and Lewis were racing on
Yeah,
track.
yeah. They were. It was
good.
like at the beginning. It was like 20 laps in, or maybe 10 laps to go, or something. It was Vettel, Lewis, Max, and then so they were all fighting for a while, and like quite a few laps, and ended up Lewis tried to pass Seb and ran and couldn't stop and went straight, and so then Seb went by, almost hit Lewis, and Max passed Lewis and was right up on Seb, and then passed Seb in the next, like, within the next lap. So it was really cool, but they were battling for a while. So that was all. It was
only thing that would have made it better is if Fernando got in the mix.
I know.
Then we would have had 4 world champions.
Yeah, actually battling, like racing on track.
With actual pace, yeah.
So anyway, that was cool. All right, so the main part of it, Checo and Charles, actually it was unreal. It was crazy from both of them. They were both pushing it 100% the entire race. You had, all right, so Charles was getting close to Checo for first like 30 laps or so, couldn't pull off a move, and then the safety car comes, and for some reason either the safety car goes fast or Checo starts to go slow, like when it's about to go in, but the lights hadn't gone out, and so he fell back 10 car lengths back, like more than 10 car lengths, and so I guess they had warned him a couple of times, and so they noted.
What, he fell too far back?
Yeah, like too far.
Yeah, because you have to stay 10 car lengths between the pace car or the car in front of you.
Yeah. So, and they said they had warned him a couple of times about it, but what had happened?
Interesting.
Yeah, so he got noted for him, and then I think he had 2 like comments or whatever they call them to see the stewards after. So the team let him know, like him and Charles were going lap 23 minutes left in the race because the race timed out,
Yeah.
It went. Charles was like 5 seconds or 5/10 back, 5/100 back, 5/10. Which one's the smaller?
5/10.
Like it. Like 11.1 is 1/10.
Is 100th.
No.
It doesn't
10th,
matter.
100th,
Go
1,000,
ahead.
right?
A tenth of a second
It's
is.
the first decimal.
Yeah.
All right. So Charles was like 5/10 back, and he was trying to make some moves, and then Checo went a purple lap, fastest lap, and Charles was like just a little bit behind him, and then
Lap or sector?
lap, so full lap. So
Yeah.
they're pushing really hard, and then the very next lap, Checo goes another purple, followed by Charles with at that same time sets the fastest lap, and so pretty much right after that, I think Checo got the call from the team saying he potentially has a 5-second penalty. So, and I think Charles at that time pretty much used up all the energy that he had in the car, all the ERS, because he started to fall back, and Checo just started to like hammer it down. And so at that point,
like he deployed all of his battery.
I think Charles did trying to do that, but
but
Checo, like the car is just that much better right now or on this track for him.
Right.
So he So pretty much after that point, with like 12, 13 laps to go or something like that, Checo just went all out and started putting on like a second a lap, and so that he could get that 5-second cushion, and ended up like
Really?
he ended up like 8 seconds up on Charles. So in like 10 laps, he made up 8 seconds. It was sweet.
Jeez. So Charles is just using up battery just to keep pace.
And Checo was kind of.
And Checo was able to manage he was managing the gap.
Yeah.
And then once Charles' tires went and he used up the battery, then Checo was just able to pull away.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
It was a really cool race because of all those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Another highlight of the race, McLaren, I probably would say it's their best finish of the year. Lando finished 4th, Danny finished 5th, and it was a huge day in the constructors for them because both Alpines, who are their closest rivals, both Alpines were out of the race. So McLaren, huge weekend over Alpine and move up to 4th, I think, in the constructors.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good day. Where did Daniel Ricciardo finish?
5th, P5.
Damn.
Yeah, it's his best finish.
You think that helps him for next year to find a seat? I mean, have you seen anything or researched at all if he's going to get a seat next year?
I don't think Michaela told me that he put out a quote saying that he would be fine not having a seat, but I feel like that's a PR move, and saying, putting kind of the demand on. So I think he knows he's going to find one, or I think he believes he's going to find one. And I don't think he needs.
I don't
think he needs P5 finish for someone to sign him either.
I mean, I see it as he's probably playing the team game, or kind of playing that long game of saying I'd be fine without a drive, but someone will make a push for him at some point.
Yeah, I think so. Him and Lando had a funny interview. You should watch it. Post-race interview. Yeah. It was good.
I will watch it.
You should. Okay. All right. So here, I got a couple more things. The question is, how many races have finished with an early checker flag and not reached full race distance?
This race?
In F1 history.
This race last year. That's 2. In history, there has to be. I don't know the right adjective, if it's a lot or very many, but
right, how about this?
With the amount of fatal crashes there were. But you keep cutting me off.
You took 20 minutes to get to that.
I was patiently using my words instead of saying
Okay, say it again.
Master.
Say it again. Go.
In history, there's got to be a lot of them because of the amount of fatal crashes there were in the early days of Formula One. You got to give me 3 numbers to narrow it down to.
All right, I'll give you an over under. I'll give you 1 over and 1 under.
Okay.
Just like whatever that game is. All right. Over.
Nice, good description.
Horse race. Higher or lower?
Over the horse race?
Higher or lower? The game, horse race.
You are fucking...
The game, horse racing.
All over the place. And The Price is Right. Yes,
No,
I know.
In the drinking game. Never mind.
We are on separate universes. Give me an over and an under. It doesn't matter what game it was.
Over or under 50?
Under 50.
Wrong.
Over 50?
Yes.
That have been stopped
Dude.
due to time.
Okay, maybe.
Or due to a fatality.
Or anything.
Or just a postponement or a conclusion of the race. That's insane.
There have been 65 races in the history of Formula One that have been stopped short of the time. Well, I'll say that.
That's wild.
So 65.
Damn.
All right, here's another.
I thought it'd be a lot, but I didn't think it'd be that much.
So what I was originally trying to find, and I still can't find it. I can't find it anywhere.
The horse racing game.
How many races? What you said first. How many races have been stopped due to time? Like strictly because they didn't finish. Like it hit the
Because it got timed out. Yeah.
Because a lot of these in the 65, they include like red flags or any race that had a red flag in it, and then it hit the time limit. So I was looking at full races that with no red flags, basically, and I can't find that.
So what would it be this year, last year?
I would think that would be like what without a red flag timed out last year.
They ran one. Did they red flag that? Yeah, I mean they had to have red flagged it.
Which one?
So you're saying for rain last year, where they awarded half points.
Yeah, that one stopped short. That one stopped that.
Yeah. So you're saying it started with a delay, and the clock started, and then they raced to a checkered flag because of time.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Instead of the opposite, where it's they start the race on time and then red flag, it's like red flag and
so no
then
red flag at all. Yeah, just it starts no red flag and it ends short of time.
That's wild.
So I feel like it's a small number because I couldn't find anything on it. I could only find.
Or it's just made up, or you just made up that statistic.
Maybe.
You're starting that statistic.
There you go. I'll do that. All right, so here's another fact. The first quote-unquote race that was stopped short, so do like a red flag like we were just talking about,
Yeah.
was in 1950, so the first year of Formula One, but it wasn't a Grand Prix. Do you know what it could be? Or what that could mean?
It wasn't a Grand Prix.
Yes. So the first race that was stopped short due to whatever.
It was probably a sprint.
No, it wasn't.
Would they have used that terminology?
No, it wasn't
No?
a sprint. Okay, I'll tell you. It was Indy 500. So they ran the Indy 500 as an F1 race, but they don't call it a Grand Prix.
Huh.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
But that's the first race that's ever been stopped short. And the first Grand Prix to be stopped short was in 1971. So 11 years later.
Interesting.
All right. So we just wrapped up the Singapore Grand Prix race review. We got a review in 30 seconds. Great review.
You
PJ,
can't say that about yourself.
I gave myself
Great
5 out of
review.
5. 5 stars for me. We were also talking a little bit about some old Formula One and some F1 history. And PJ, you were wanting to tell me about what is it? Your favorite driver? An old driver that is your favorite old driver, or what's the story?
Yeah, he's quickly crawling up the ranks of all-time favorite drivers for me. I've heard the name before, but I've never really looked into the history until I saw an episode of Grand Tour. It's on Amazon. It's the old Top Gear from BBC. The guys that kind of grew my passion for cars and for racing as a child. I attribute a lot of their knowledge into why I got into cars and racing. But I'm talking about Jim Clark. Back in 2009, Times Magazine rated him as the number one greatest Formula One driver of all time. Above Alan Prost, above Ayrton Senna, above Sir Jackie Stewart. I'm sure it maybe have changed nowadays, with Sebastian Vettel. That was back in 2009, so it was before Sebastian Vettel, before Lewis Hamilton, kind of on the fringe of Fernando Alonso, before Max Verstappen. But I kind of went into a rabbit hole and started to learn a lot more about Jim Clark and his history. And I guess the reason we don't hear about him as often is because he died at the age of 32 when he was racing. So if you want to hear about him, I took some notes and I wanted to share, why I think he is probably the best driver in if not Formula One history, racing history.
Did he die in a Formula One race?
Not in Formula One. He died in a Formula 2 crash. So back when he was racing, so he was 32 when he died. He was born in 1936, died in 1968. He was born in Scotland, and he raced for Lotus for his entire racing career. When he was racing in Formula One. So it's very different because Formula One back then, they only had 10 races. So he was racing in different series. It wasn't that everything was combined. He was in Formula One. I didn't really look into where Formula One was racing predominantly back then, but I know that they had Spa on the calendar, they had Monaco on the calendar, they had Silverstone on the calendar, but there was also F2, British F2, and French F2. So those were obviously racing in the respected names that they're named after. And then he was racing in the Tasman series, which was in Australasia, which is Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, any island off of Asia and Australia. And those were old F1 cars, older modeled F1 cars. And he was also racing in the Tasman the Tasman series. He was also racing rally cars. And in, let me make sure I get the right date. In 1965, he also raced in the Indianapolis 500. So he did 136 races in 1965. The F1 calendar in one year.
What?
In 1 year. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. The F1 calendar now, 21, 22 races. Could you imagine Lewis, Max jumping out of the car, getting on a flight? He was literally jumping out of the car from Silverstone, taking a flight to Australia for the Tasman series, and racing that very same day or the next day, which is insane because thinking back to 1965, can't be comfortable airliners. I hate flying, so I always think about how dangerous flying was back then. So that's always where my mind goes to first place. But yeah, it was crazy. I have a handful of if we have time, I have a handful of like kind of his story and how he started. If you want to hear it.
Yeah.
So he was racing as an amateur. And in 1958, he came in second place to Colin Chapman in a Lotus Elite race. The name Colin Chapman for us and for me until I started looking into it didn't mean much, but back in the day it meant a whole lot to the racing community. So he was a design engineer, he was an inventor, and he was also a builder in the automotive industry. And he founded Lotus, like the car Lotus, too. And so Jim Clark came in second place to him in an amateur race, and he made such an impression on Chapman that he gave him what I would equate to F2 nowadays, but in Formula Junior. He gave him a ride there for Lotus. He did well in Formula Juniors, FJ is what they called it back then, that he made his F1 debut in 1960. And he made it partway through the series at the Dutch Grand Prix. I think it's due to the driver was in like a motorcycle accident or something. These guys were crazy back then. So he won his first Formula One World Championship in 1963. He was in the Lotus 25. That's the model that Chapman had made for the team that year. He won 7 out of the 10 races, which, racking up statistically to Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna and Lewis and nowadays Max, doesn't seem, the numbers just looking at them don't seem that spectacular. But when you break it down into the math, that was, 70%. As opposed to Prost, who had 43.75% in his best year, and Senna at 50% of a winning ratio. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I was also learning to at one of those races at Spa, his gearbox started to give out in the middle of the race. It was also a rainy, foggy day, and he was going 160 miles an hour through Spa. He was holding on to the gear lever inside of the car. He was holding the car into gear while driving with one hand, and he still won the race by over 3 minutes.
My God.
It's so crazy. When I learned all this, it gave me goosebumps. I'm like, how have I never learned about this? So, also back to that spectacular year that he had in 1965. He qualified on the front row at the Indianapolis 500. He averaged 160 miles an hour for the race. He led 190 of the 200 laps, and he won by over 2 minutes at the Indianapolis 500. Yes. This guy was winning races by minutes. Nowadays, we look at a gap of 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 23 seconds as huge. This guy was winning by minutes. It's crazy. There's also, he was talking about, his race engineers were talking about how in practice he was driving, and he came in from practice and he's like, there's something wrong with the right rear. So they did a spot check. They kind of tore the parts down all at the same time. Just, took the wheel off, looked at the brake pads, whatever, just eye checking and making sure everything's okay. Goes back out, comes back in, he says, there's something wrong. He's like, I can feel it. So the lead mechanic that night took apart the transmission, and there was just a little bit of wear on one lug nut or one bolt. And the engineer's like, I don't know how it's humanly possible for anyone to feel that. He's like, it's insane. A couple more things and then we'll move on. But they would tear down both Lotus's car between Jim Clark and the opposing Lotus driver. And they said, and mechanics and engineers said they could always tell which car Jim Clark drove because they were so close to pristine that there was barely any wear. He raced, like I said, he raced against Alain Prost. I'm trying to see who else, Graham Hill, Jackie Stewart. But there was a cool quote from Graham Hill. He said that he was so fast because he was the smoothest and cleanest driver. You'd never see him jerking the wheel. Like any onboard camera, he's just always so smooth and just like the slightest adjustments. And because the cars aren't what they were today, I don't really go into like the V6 or V12 or what it is. It just wasn't as powerful of an engine. So if you're scrubbing off any time at all, it takes super long to get any momentum back in the car. So that's why he was so good at that time. But like I said, he died at Hockenheim Ring in West Germany on April 7th. 1968 at the age of 32. It was a cold, rainy day, and the whole morning he was saying he couldn't get any heat or any grip into the tires. And back then, the track was right next to a forest, and so he slid off the track and into the forest, and cars splintered into multiple pieces, and just a really sad day. They're trying to investigate if it was driver error or if it was car malfunction, but so many drivers swore that he could never make a mistake like that it had to have been a tire that was deflated. So it's just crazy. I mean, and the turn of events could have been so different. He had the option to race into two races. I think one was like a rally car race, and the one he ultimately chose was a Formula 2 race that took his life. So, I bring it up. It's someone that I really hadn't heard about in history, but is quickly climbing my ranks, and I would suggest to take a little bit of time to learn about his history. I'll send you the clip from Grand Tour so you can watch it, but it's pretty awesome. It gave me goosebumps, and like I was feeling pretty emotional when I was watching it the other night, so it was cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can put it on here, or we can clip it onto here or something.
So that was a little bit of Formula One history for you and for everyone that got me all jazzed up and I thought was super cool. But I think it's a good time to transition into what is coming up on the calendar this week. What are we looking forward to in the Japanese Grand Prix, Steve?
My first impression, the Japanese Grand Prix looks like, from what I've seen, that's going to be a rain race, pretty much a rain weekend again.
Is it monsoon season in Asia?
I don't know. Do you think I know when monsoon season in Asia is?
I don't know.
Do you know when monsoon season in Asia is?
I'm looking it up right now. Typically expected late October, early November. Why would they put that on the calendar when it's going to be monsoon season?
Yeah, that's really bad. That's dumb.
It's June through September is monsoon season, and then it slowly transitions to like late October, November. But
well, when would they?
As a calendar, putting together the calendar. I don't know. I have no idea.
No, I know,
but I feel.
You said the season is June through September.
Monsoon season, South Asia runs from June through September.
Yeah, it's October. So
I know, but then another thing that I saw as well is that it gradually turns to the inter-monsoon period in late October, early November.
So there's really no non-monsoon season.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Japan is an island, so there's going to be a lot of monsoons in Japan. But go ahead, continue. Right. It's going to be a rain weekend?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a rain weekend again. So my question for you is, do you like rain races or not?
I like it. I think it gives the midfield a chance to compete for I'm sorry. I'm starting over. I'm going to start over on that. Yeah, I like rain races. It gives the midfield a chance to compete for podium spots. I mean, we've seen some of the, I don't know if best is the great word, but some of the most entertaining and interesting races have been in rain over the past couple of years. Did Pierre Gasly get his race win from a rain-soaked weekend?
Yeah.
We saw Charles Leclerc's Charles meltdown in rain and Lewis. They both went into the wall in the last corner. And then we also saw the Lando Norris meltdown in the rain. So I think it throws a wrinkle. It makes interesting races, and it's made races in the past that would traditionally be kind of runaways by Lewis have made them more interesting. So I do enjoy a rain weekend.
I like them now and again. It is fun. It's cool to see the.
I hate the delays.
Yeah, same. Well, what you said earlier of a normal way to watch the race: turn it on, watch the first like 2 laps, and then fall
Lay
back
in
to sleep.
bed.
And watch the last like 5.
Lay in bed
Probably.
and doze off. Yeah.
Yeah, probably 10 to 15 last 10 to 15. But yeah, delays. It makes it so hard. You have no idea when to wake back up and watch again. And then you don't know if you're going to be able to fall asleep and miss the rest of it or what. So, yeah.
I mean, it makes it interesting, too, in regards to strategy and all kind of the fumbles with strategy as well, when to change tires. I mean, playing Formula One on PlayStation, that's always my favorite, is when can I I'm constantly checking. When can I change to inters? When can I change back to slicks, you know?
You know what you need to do? I told you. You need to stream playing.
I will. I've been playing. I will. I got Gran Turismo 7, so I've been playing that more than F1, but still racing.
Yeah, you can.
But yeah,
yes, you can stream that too.
I'll hop on the Twitch. We'll make a Twitch channel too, and I'll start streaming.
I already made a Discord, so we're ready to go.
It'll be easy enough.
I actually know how to do it. I stream, like I used to stream, just trying to test it out and mess around with it. I was streaming
Stream what?
Horizon. No, Horizon. I got some viewers sometimes.
Yeah.
We got like 5 viewers sometimes.
You say, "What up, chat?"
No.
Like tat the 10 man. Or
I didn't
Tim
talk.
the
I
tat
didn't
man.
talk. I didn't talk at all. I didn't even have a
too
microphone
scared?
set up. Yeah.
You're too
now I
scared.
would.
I don't want to say anything.
I would now that I know how to podcast.
I would worry because I would just rage quit all the time, or rage reset the race.
I do that way too much in Formula One.
Yeah.
I've been trying to stop.
Back to the topic at hand.
All right.
I was telling you about, and I'm not sure you knew this, but Max can wrap up the 2022 World Championship this weekend. So there's 5 races left. If we subtract this upcoming weekend, we have 4. So after this weekend, there's a possibility of 112 points on the table after the Japanese Grand Prix. Currently sitting behind Max, Charles Leclerc has 104 points behind Max. So if Max gets the race win and the fastest lap, he will be 112 points ahead of Charles Leclerc. So with 112 laps or 112 points possible for the rest of the season, he will then be declared the 2022 Formula One FIA World Champion.
So you just need the win and fastest lap.
He just needs the win and fastest lap. It doesn't matter what. I don't think it matters what Charles does.
It has to, because
Oh,
this week.
I'm an idiot. I should have kept reading.
Yeah. This week it said, oh my God.
Oh, he has to. Sorry. Charles would have to finish third or lower for that to happen.
That's a pretty big caveat.
Hey, I kept reading as well, and it says that's occurred 8 times during Verstappen's 11 wins this year.
That's wow.
That's not bad. That's pretty good statistic.
That is good.
You think you can bet on that stuff? Like, could you bet on will Max wrap up the World Championship this weekend?
I feel like you probably could.
I don't know. I've never looked at DraftKings to see if you can bet on Formula. I'm so bad at sports gambling that I don't.
I quit too.
I'm
stopped.
horrible. I've never won one bet.
That's can't be true.
I swear to God.
No, show you're not on the screen.
What?
You're not in the camera. Let's see.
Lost. Open. That's Steelers plus 7.5 wins this year. That's definitely going to be a loss.
Go all the way.
I mean, it's not very many.
You're like 0 for 2. What are you talking about?
It's not good.
I think I had bet on Formula One before, like how you can do. It's like how you do for racing.
I bet with my heart, not with my head.
Well, that's terrible. I used to do that too for Purdue and the Steelers.
Yeah, I bet on them too much. Oh, we forgot to bring up our jerseys. What are you wearing today?
All right. Very similar to first episode. My Purdue jersey, but this is my favorite one that I actually wore playing. It's got. Oh my God! Ow. The American flag up at the top there.
Yeah.
But yeah, this camo, the digital camo, is sick.
That is.
What jersey are you wearing?
I have on the classic Pens jersey with the old Robo pen.
That one's, I like that.
Yeah. They're talking about bringing back the Robo Penguin back from Jaromir Jagr and Mario Lemieux days. The NHL season starts up here in the next, I think it's a week from tomorrow. Or Wednesday is opening night. So getting excited for hockey season. Nice. But back to the task at hand. I want your prediction for the upcoming race this weekend.
I don't want Max. Restart that part right there. Bold prediction for the weekend is Merck is going to win the Japanese Grand Prix. They had a ton of improvements.
Yes. And their pedigree in the rain.
They're due. Yeah.
They are due.
I think I'm feeling Lewis. Lewis is going to get his win for the year. Because real quick. Yeah. Because he had a terrible race this week. He couldn't figure out the medium tires, and when it was starting to get like kind of dry,
yeah,
he ran in straight into the wall one time. He almost crashed into Seb when he was trying to get past him with Max there, but he had a great attitude in the post game or the post race interview. Mm-hmm. He was saying just it was a bad weekend, and I think he's gonna be.
You shake it off and you move on to the next.
Yeah, he's gonna be ready for next weekend. So.
All right.
What are you thinking for the race?
I hate to say it, but I think we see Max bounce back. I don't know if he wraps up the championship. I think there is a strong possibility. I'm going to make, if I can find it, I'm going to make the bet and put money that Max wraps it up. So I have $10 in my DraftKings that I can put in there. So next week we're going to find out if I lost $10 or if I made money, which is highly unlikely.
You're just saying you're 0 for 3.
I could win, which would be sick.
And you're going to put your whole $10 on there. All right.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Right.
Go big or go home.
Okay, if you can't do that bet, what are you going to do? Do top 3 finish or something like that.
What? In DraftKings?
Yeah, you can. You know how you bet horse racing? Like trifecta and those kind of things?
Yeah.
You can do those. You do those same things.
All right. I have.
Or you can bet if there's a safety car, or you can bet if there's
Max, Lewis, Charles.
All right.
Checo. Jorge.
Jorge.
George.
Oh,
that's my
funny.
top 5.
Okay. In the Danny, Rick, and Lando interview.
That I have to watch, yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, Lando came up, Danny was talking, Lando came up, and Danny is calling people by their last name and then first name. Like, without a beat, he was like, Norris, Lando, good to see you. How was your race? And then he was like on beat, like talking normally, and he brought up George, and he goes, instead of saying George Russell or George, he goes, Russell, George, did this, this, and this. It's funny.
Funny. I just looked at it more. If Max wins with the fastest lap point, it doesn't matter what Charles or Sergio do. If he wins with no fastest lap, they both have to finish 3rd or lower.
So you just gave us 4 predictions that were all different.
When?
You said that 4 different
No,
times.
this is true. I'm telling you, I found it. This is
you
true.
You read it the last time too.
Yeah, then I said it correctly, but you made me second guess myself.
And it's still different from this one.
No, if Max wins with the fastest lap, it doesn't matter what anyone else does. He wins.
Okay.
If he comes in first without the fastest lap, Charles and Sergio have to finish 3-4 or 4-3, whichever you want to see.
Or lower.
Yes, or lower. That's insinuated.
Okay. All right.
And that's all we have for tonight on To Be Determined, a Formula One podcast. We'll see y'all next week.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week on To Be Determined, a Formula One podcast. I'm redoing PJ's outro so that we have a second option.
So that we have options.
And join us next week for...
Love you guys.
Okay, that's it. We're not doing anything next week.
We're not?
Yeah, we are. We're wrapping up we're gonna review the Suzuka Japanese Grand Prix, and
that's insinuated. What else would we do?
We have no idea yet, but we're gonna figure it out.
We'll do things.
From now until Monday, probably Monday afternoon, we'll figure it out.
Yee.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of the To Be Determined Formula One podcast. If you enjoy listening to us and like what you hear, subscribe for weekly podcast releases every Thursday, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at TBD_F1_podcast. I'm Steve.
I'm PJ. Thanks, everyone, and we'll catch you next week.